That's a cool. You're on. I want you to talk about your favorite pieces of music, and if you can, talk about a little bit about the composers and what you know about them, but your favorite points in certain symphonies in your youth and how your tastes changed, and if you could actually sing a little bit of the tunes of your favorite parts of these symphonies or
well, I've got something else I really want to talk about.
No, I don't. This is what I want you to talk about because it's so positive, and it's a lot of young people who are learning music would get a lot out of this. Could you please talk about? We'll talk about what you want to talk about after.
Well, I mean, at one point I asked my father what his favorite moments in music were. He told me that the variations of Brahms' variations on a theme by Handel. I mean, I can't really sing it very well.
That's all
right. But it's a very beautiful strains of music in that. And then he told me that in the Schumann Second Symphony, there's a theme that he just absolutely loved. I can't call it to mind.
But what about your favorites?
Well, I mean, some of them.
I'm not asking for your father's.
No, I know, but I mean, Bruckner was a big favorite that we shared. And we often listen to Bruckner symphonies together. And, when you get really moving to the point that, a tear might roll down or a chill go up your back, I'd ask him, I'd say, why does that make me want to cry? And he could tell me, he said, because he just modulated to another key from E to F. He knew why it made you.
So you're saying it's not only, he taught you to understand that it's not only important to know which parts move you, but why they move you.
Well, he could tell me. He knew the music well enough that he knew what was happening.
But what about you, man? You keep going to your dad. I'm not asking about your dad's tastes.
Well, I mean, these were long symphonies. The Bruckner symphony takes about, some of them are 45 minutes to an hour long. And we had a wonderful set of LPs, and I used to listen to them in complete undisturbed circumstances in his studio, where we had good speakers, and even go sometimes out onto the porch if it were a hot summer day, and the music blasting away there. Or down in the basement in his studio, where we weren't bothering anybody. Even the neighbors next door couldn't hear it, because there are several walls between us and them. And with Brahms' portrait hanging up on the wall, with his big belly, beautiful head, leaning over his piano, playing something. And so, I went through all of them, and I got favorites. I mean, the Fourth Symphony starts with horn solo. Da 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 dee, da 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 dee, da 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 dee. And then it goes through this great series of modulations from key to key, and then, into this really bombastic, great brass choir. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. And then the Seventh is even more stronger. And then the Ninth Symphony. Bum ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum bum 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 beep bum 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 ba 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 dum 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 bum bum ba ba ba. And I mean, it's just so powerful. I mean, the use of these beautiful, delicate sounds like you might get in the forest of birds singing or something, and then the great string solos and the slow movement, you know. Dee da da dee da 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 dee da dee da 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 da, and then the great brass, and then the great, you know, building up to a great crescendo at the end. They're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the First Symphony has a slow movement. The First Symphony of Bruckner has a slow movement. It's absolutely devastating. An adagio, maybe it's marked andante, I don't know. But it's a slow movement. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this fourth, seventh, and ninth, fabulous symphony. And he also had a zero symphony. I guess because he didn't do a tenth. You know, his teacher wouldn't let him write for 7 years. They wouldn't let him compose a note.
Who is this?
Anton Bruckner, he was the Kapellmeister.
Who is his teacher?
I don't know his teacher's name. But he was invited. He was a very simple man, a very unsophisticated man. He was invited to conduct one of his symphonies at the Vienna Philharmonic. And he chose shoes from different pairs, you know, and he wore kind of peasant pants. And he got up before the orchestra. He didn't know how to give the downbeat because he hadn't been trained as a conductor. He was a great organist, and obviously did a lot of Bach cantatas in the church. He was a cappella, the choral, the master of the chorus, the leader of the chorus. So they probably did a lot of Bach cantatas, and he did a lot of Bach organ music. I don't know how good an organist he was, but I never heard any comment about that. Anyway, he got up before the Viennese Philharmonic Orchestra, the greatest orchestra in Europe at that time, and he didn't know how to start them, didn't know how to give the downbeat. So he stood there, and finally he just, you know, dressed in his peasant clothes, and it was shoes from different pairs on, because he was so nervous about this opportunity, this conducting day, introducing one of his symphonies to a larger public. And don't forget he lived in a great isolation in this part of Germany where his church was. And
he was Protestant, right?
Protestant. Later, Schnittke came there, learning about his German, although he grew up in Russia. Alfred Schnittke came to this part of Germany where there were little churches built up into the trees, little treetop churches, you know, perched in the trees.
Oh, that's beautiful.
There's a picture of that someplace. I have it on one of.
Do any of them still exist?
May. But Schnittke found out he had German ancestors, so he went there, and there he converted.
But you don't know whether he converted to Catholicism or a Protestant.
No, I'm not sure at all.
So we can't.
Really. I don't know that.
We'll have to check on that later.
So, finally, what Bruckner did, he just said, "Gentlemen, can we begin?" Instead of giving the downbeat, he just asked them to start it forward, which they did.
And how long was the pause? Was it really?
Well, it was probably embarrassing to the audience, and maybe his friends. And thank God his wife or lover wasn't there, because she would have been nervous out of her mind. But finally, the orchestra took pity on him, and they just started it themselves and read the notes and played beautifully. And he was introduced to a wider audience. Nobody had really probably heard his symphonies before. And they're long, you know. I think Leonard Bernstein actually commented to a friend, they were listening to, or reading through one of the scores, and he said, I think Bernstein was heard saying, it's really boring, isn't it? Well, but I don't know what his friend said. I don't know, I hope his friend wasn't stupid, because if he was any good as a musician, he would have known that it was not boring.
So why did Bernstein say that?
Because actually, we probably felt it. He felt it. Not enough was happening. You know, he was into these kind of Stravinsky-like rhythms and so on. You know, he's an entertainer. He's a great performer. He's a superstar, Bernstein was. And he knew how to
So if
grab an audience.
If Bernstein felt that way, then he probably didn't like Schnittke either.
Well, he probably never knew Schnittke. Probably never even heard a Schnittke piece. And surely never, I never know about him conducting one. But it was because Bruckner had the guts to go through with this call to go to Vienna to conduct his work. Whether it was received well or not, we don't know. I think the main harshest critic at that point was named Hanslick, who was very smart. And, you know, Hanslick, I think, preferred Brahms to Bruckner.
What's your favorite Brahms piece?
I love the serenades, and I love the Deutsches Requiem, the German Requiem.
Is there a particular part of the Requiem that you absolutely?
Oh, I mean, there's
that you can kind of hum or make a.
No, I can't hum any piece of Brahms. But he did those wonderful waltzes for choral waltzes. They're beautiful, beautiful songs that he set for, waltz time. And Liebeslieder Walzer, it's called. The beloved, loved ones waltzes. They're absolutely gorgeous. And of course I love all his quintets and sextets and all the string music and the great piano music, the intermezzos, and fabulous. It's all great stuff. And I love all of the 9 symphonies. I love the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. And he never wrote a 5th symphony, but he was his main life was in the household of Robert and Schumann and his wife Clara, whose name, she was a great pianist, Clara Wieck. It's a very interesting story. Her father was Robert Schumann's piano teacher, and while he was his student, he saw his daughter and fell in love with her. She became a great pianist, and particularly a great player of his music. And their great friend, who was often in their household, was Johannes Brahms, who was obviously inspired by being near Robert Schumann, who was one of the greatest music critics of his time. He wrote under 2 pseudonyms. One was the pseudonym of the person who was for the music, and one was the one who was a little bit negative about it. And so here you have these 3 incredible talents: Clara Wieck, Schumann's wife, and Brahms, and who was about you know, this is way before he came out with his 4 symphonies, and obviously he'd written a lot of the chamber music, like just quintets and sextets and trios, and the music for the wonderful trio for clarinet and other string instruments. And he used to have these wonderful evenings, musical evenings, and he'd invite his friends, and some of his friends were visual artists, and most of his best friends among his string instrument playing friends were Jewish, and so they're probably just fabulous musicians. They'd have these evenings, and a lot of these scores were decorated with drawings, so that there was this kind of mix of visual art and, of course, a musical score on lined paper, on score paper, has a visual impact. I mean, makes a picture. In fact, I did an abstract of one of my father's of his 8th symphony. He had all the instruments in the orchestra down the left margin, and then some notes written, a few themes. The tone roll that he used in the 8th symphony, that was lost. He left it on the airplane going to California. The slow movement. It's a great loss. I bet it was a hell of a piece. So that's gone. We'll never see that again. But I do have that page with the tone roll, which I made into an abstract drawing. And I saw there was a beautiful exhibit at the Fine Arts Museum of these evenings.
Which fine arts?
Or the Boston Museum of Fine Arts.
The MFA?
Mm-hmm. MFA, Museum of Fine Arts. They had an exhibit of these musical evenings, or these programs that were given by Brahms and his best friends, these wonderful string players, and with these kind of decorated scores. And I mean, you think of this household with Brahms probably absolutely head over heels in love with Clara Wieck, his best friend's wife, for whom, in the first year of marriage, Robert Schumann wrote 200 songs for her, dedicated to her. And he asked for her hand in marriage, asked her father for her hand. Her father denied him. And what did he do? He got a lawyer, and he got the lawyer to persuade, almost with the threat of bringing him to court if he would not allow Robert to marry his daughter. And they had, I think, about 5 kids. And then, you know, he had horrible music hallucinations, which is something that Oliver Sacks writes about in his book called Musicophilia. And this is sometimes a result of people who have had brain cancer and have lesions in their brain that causes this strange thing where you have this, you know, music, like you're hearing it from a loudspeaker going to your mind. You can drove Schumann a little bit nuts, and he finally jumped off a bridge and committed suicide to stop it. It's a brain disorder. And
What's your favorite Mozart piece?
I love the Mass in C we heard the other day was Bernstein conducting. A wonderful German choir. The Mass in C, I love that. I love the Requiem, Mozart's Requiem, one of the greatest choral pieces of all time.
What's your favorite Beethoven piece?
Well, I love the late quartets. I love the late piano sonatas. You know, up to Opus 29 and some of the very last of the sonatas, starting with the Moonlight up to the Appassionata, and then some of the other ones at the end.
What's your favorite Bach symphony or piece?
Well, I love the B minor Mass. I love St. Matthew's Passion. I love, when you go downstairs, see if you can find, just for yourself to listen to, Cantata 51. It was when I got married the first time. We had one of the greatest singers in the world at that time, Uday Ross, singing that at my wedding in Christchurch in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it's a fabulous cantata for soprano and organ and other things. I don't know if there were any instruments in there, but it was a wonderful, wonderful cantata. But I love the all of the partitas and the Goldberg variations that Glenn Gould does so brilliantly. And then the Brandenburg concertos and the Bach suites, suite number 2 for flute. My father, when Pat and I came back to Knoxville, we arrived and came in from the airport, went upstairs, got our bathing suits on, it was a hot day, walked down to the swimming pool, and where I had made this fantastic, almost a patio around the swimming pool by placing bricks, kind of end to end, and this design, and so my father had brought Roger Rhodes and several string instruments, and with his bass, contrabass, and a cellist and a couple of violinists, and they were doing the Bach Suite number 2, which was with flute, and he played it. I've never heard it played faster. It was so fabulous. So here we are hearing a live performance of the Bach Suite number 2 for strings and flute. It was a concerto grosso. With our beautiful willow tree in the front yard and the cherry trees, and fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And up the hill, that was a beautiful. Another beautiful flowering tree with red blossoms, and to hear that in this extraordinary setting, surrounded by gorgeous trees and bushes, just fabulous to hear. Bach played live, with my father playing flute at his absolute best. Still, he still was not besieged by any of the negative symptoms of old age and aging, and losing any of his faculties. His flute, he was at the top of his talents. He just come back from South America, where he gave 10 flute and harpsichord recitals of Bach and mostly Bach, all the Bach harpsichord and flute sonatas, and then he'd also played 10 orchestra concerts, starting in La Serena, all the way down to the bottom of Chile, through Concepcion with the German orchestra, because there are a lot of German people in Concepcion. And then Osorno is the very bottom before Tierra del Fuego, the bottom of Chile. And we did these 10 concerts, 10 flute recitals with harpsichord and flute, all their great Bach music, and then 10 symphony orchestra concerts. And so when he came back from that, he was really wasted. I mean, he had a bad dysentery from paramecium and sciatica and other ailments, so that his friend Alfonso Letier's brother, who was Archbishop of Chile, gave a novena for him with the prayers for his health, and he perked up. But I mean, when I saw him and picked him up at the airport, he was like 60 years old. He left it when he was about 55, been down there a year and a half on a long sabbatical, and he really looked. He aged in a very, very dramatic way.
Wait, he went down when he was 55 and he came back when he was 60, and you said it was a year and a half? That doesn't add up.
Well, he was down there for about 2.5 years, I think.
Well, then he wouldn't have been 60.
He wouldn't have been 60, but he was visibly aged and been wasted. I mean, it's the best word I can think of by the strain of all the work he did there, conducting and playing flute and teaching, meeting all the young composers,
So
upon whom he had a big influence.
who's your favorite composer of the 20th century?
Well, I mean, one would have to be Stravinsky, another Shostakovich, a third Prokofiev, and I think, I think the Russians, their great century of Russian music, in which it started with Mussorgsky and Borodin, and then Tchaikovsky, and then you get Stravinsky, Glazunov, and Glier with his Idiomoremus. The Third Symphony is one of the great pieces of Russian music. And then at the end of the century, Schnittke. You have also Shchedrin, and then Sofia Odolina.
Who's your favorite Italian composer?
I love Puccini. I like Respighi. I like Della Piccola. There's a more modern one named Nono, and then I'm not as up on modern Italian music, but Respighi is a wonderful composer.
Who's your favorite Spanish composer?
I love Da Falla. I love Rodrigo, who was in a class at the École Normale Supérieure, the Conservatory of Paris, with my father, in a class with Joaquin Nin, and who was the father of Anais Nin, the writer. Rodrigo was in that class, a blind composer from Spain. And then there's, of course, Da Falla is a great composer, but there are a lot of wonderful Chilean composers like Domingo Santa Cruz and Juan Orrego Salas, who are friends of our family. And there's another great composer who's Ginastera, I think who's Argentine. And there's some 12-tone composers too. My father had some influence on, I forget their names. But there were some Spanish composers in the Baroque era, which were more in the tradition of Bach, polyphonic composers, and even some of their art had. I have a portrait of Jesus Christ, which we brought back from Chile, which was probably done in the 18th century, maybe even the 17th century, but that's very much a Baroque work, and you can see the difference, and you could obviously hear it in the music of that period.
Who's your favorite Hungarian composer?
Well, I love Bartók. I would say Bartók. My father spent about 6 hours with Bartók when he was in Chicago. And I love Bartók's 6 quartets for strings, or string quartet, fabulous pieces. And I love his third piano concerto, his music for percussion and celesta, and his first violin concerto, especially with Isaac Stern. I have a recording downstairs. And then some of his other music, like his music for Bluebird opera, I don't know very well. But some of his piano music is wonderful, the Mikrokosmos, other pieces. But I mean, it's very evident in the music for strings, percussion, and celesta. And the third piano concerto is fabulous.
Who's your favorite Finnish composer?
Sibelius, Jan Sibelius is fabulous, I think. I love his Fifth Symphony, I love his Seventh, I love the Second, and I love the Fourth. I love all those pieces. And I love the violin concerto. I had a recording with Joshua Bell playing the violin, which I thought was wonderful. And I think he's a fabulous composer. You know, he was supported all his life by the Finnish government. He never had to have even a teaching job to survive. He was given a stipend for his whole life because they recognized his genius and his talent and his potential. So they made sure he had enough money to be comfortable. And it honored him and gave him a place in life. He wrote, these great symphonies. He wrote the Second, Fourth, Fifth, and Seventh are fabulous pieces. And then there's other pieces like the Karalas Overture, and absolutely wonderful composer, Jan Sibelius, one of the greats of all time. I mean, another great one is Nielsen. Nielsen's Fifth Symphony. It's just fabulous. I've got to go to the bathroom. Excuse me. I have to interrupt this. Gotta go take a